My name is Professor Sky, and I'm going to be taking you on a rather sentimental journey through the past. I'm going to be telling you about me and my family seeing Paul McCartney over the span of 61 years in the United States of America. Okay? Now, before I really get into it, let's just take a second to really appreciate the fact that Paul McCartney is one of the most appreciated and decorated artists of all time. But at the same time, he still goes out there, he still plays his songs, he still looks for that feedback, he still gives people the opportunity to say, I saw the guy that wrote that perform that, like one of the best feelings you can possibly have, that he's still dedicated to putting on 3-hour shows, that he's still dedicated to putting out new music and new albums. It's incredible. And I feel like I've spent much of my life reaping that benefit. But you're here to hear about the concerts, right? So let's talk about the first concert, 1964 at Carnegie Hall. You see him there. There's Paul right there. That's the show in 1964. If you're familiar with Beatles lore, you will know the first show that they played in the United States was in Washington, D.C. The next day they played, or 2 days, I don't know, whatever. The next show they played was at Carnegie Hall. They played a morning, afternoon, and an evening show. So my dad saw, I assume, my dad and mom, they went together. I assume they saw the evening show. So they saw the third ever performance of the Beatles in the United States of America. And let me tell you, I would love to tell you all of their great memories of February 12th, 1964. My dad was 23. Paul was 21. There they were at the apex of Beatlemania. And there's like no memory. My dad has shared like basically no memories with me at all because he couldn't hear anything. It was like putting your head into a wood chipper filled with teenage girls just screaming their head off. I think he said he remembers Roll Over Beethoven, and I checked the set list, and that was the first track. But basically, it was just screaming. What he mainly told me, the story he would tell, he did like to repeat himself, but stories, was the image of the dust on the balcony just jumping, just like with all the noise and excitement. So I wish I could tell you that he was there with a little notepad talking about how great it was to see Please Please Me, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, John Lennon in 1964 singing Twist and Shout in New York City. But I don't have any stories like that. As far as I can tell, it was almost like not seeing the Beatles at all. It was just so chaotic, which of course is what it was to see the Beatles. So we're going to fast forward all the way to February 8th, 1990 at the Worcester Centrum. Now listen, I've asked my dad so many times about that show in Carnegie Hall because the Beatles have been one of my greatest obsessions. When I was like 11, 12 years old, I just got fascinated, first by Jimi Hendrix, then by the Beatles. I would read any book, listen to all music, every video. The first movie I saw in the theater was Yellow Submarine. I was just obsessed with the Beatles. As much as I could get, I would get. So when this show was going to happen, I was 12 years old, and I was so excited that they were going to take me. My father was 50 at this time, I guess 49. His birthday was in April. And Paul McCartney was 48, which is a little bit weird, because my age now is 48. So, I remember thinking, wow, Paul McCartney sure is old. And that's the age that I am now. But it was amazing. It was an amazing show. My first concert, I can tell you as much as I can remember. I remember beforehand my brother and his kind of cool friends, because my brothers were older, 12 years older than me. And one of them was a huge Beatles fan. He's like, I don't want to go see Paul McCartney. I was like, why is that? Because he plays Sgt. Pepper's, and it's just wrong. They are not the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Only the Beatles are. So the snob in me sort of wants to agree, but the bigger snob in me wants to say, dude, that's a Paul song anyways. That was part of the problem. That's part of the reason the Beatles broke up, because Paul was such a control guy that the whole Sgt. Pepper's thing was basically his thing, and it kind of alienated the rest of the group. But that doesn't matter. You want to see what he looked like at this show? Let's see. I can show you what he looked like at that show. There he is. Listen, good looking man for the same age that I am. He was in the mid mullet phase. He had his mullet phase, his vest phase, and his vest and mullet phase. Right now, I think he's just in the vest phase. But that's what he looked like. That's what it looked like at the show. So, there was that kind of like older kid cynicism going around, but I don't care. This was a time in America where the Rolling Stones were often touring, Paul McCartney was. It was this kind of like boomer excitement for classic rock of the 60s. But I didn't care. I just could not have been more excited. I remember being really excited that I was going to see him, and I even remember understanding that Richard Lester, the guy who directed Hard Day's Night, was going to be making a movie for the concert. And in one of the little bits of the video, Paul McCartney says, like, oh, I love all the attention from all the girls, but I never touched them, or something like that. And I remember one of my brother's friends being like, yeah, he does. Anyways, kind of a weird thing. The most legendary moment of this concert. So if you don't know, Worcester is like an hour outside of Boston. It's the home of the high school Worcester Twista team. It's before the Boston Garden was retrofitted and became the Fleet Center. I think a lot more concerts happened in Worcester because it was just kind of a nice venue. So it was a pretty popular venue to go to, but it's a totally different place than Boston, a totally different vibe. So the first thing Paul McCartney says is, "Hello, Boston." And this woman behind us on cue just goes, "It's Worcester." One of the funniest, seriously, the funniest concert moment of my life. Now, the funny thing was, for this, I was pumped. So I didn't just listen to Beatles songs. I went and I borrowed all of my brother's Paul McCartney albums. We're talking Venus and Mars. We're talking Ram. We're talking McCartney 1. We're talking, Red Rose Speedway. All of the Paul McCartney albums I've been listening to. Just listening to and listening to and listening to. But the one I've been listening to the most at this point was my cassette of Flowers in the Dirt, the 1989 Paul McCartney album. So unbeknownst to me, I was like the best fan in the audience because I was psyched. I could not wait to hear songs like Figure of Eight or Flowers in the Dirt, right? I was really into the new stuff. And lo and behold, the first track was Figure of Eight. So while the rest of the audience was sitting there being like, when's he going to play Blackbird? I was just just psyched. Now, the rest of the show was kind of a blur to me. I mean, really, it's just, what do? You're 12 years old. You see one of your favorite artists ever playing. I went with my oldest brother, my third oldest brother, and my father. So it's it's a pretty interesting crew. I assume that my mother was supposed to go, but that she backed out for some reason. One of my brothers who went was not a Beatles fan, so I'm trying to figure out how he ended up there. But it was just this great, great moment. And it turns out that the Paul McCartney estate agreed it was a good show. You can listen to the version of Eleanor Rigby that I saw on the live album, Tripping the Live Fantastic. It's beautiful. I re-listened to it. It's really mournful and slow, and his voice is so good. Listen, we're going to get to the 2025 show. His voice was not that good. But I've been sick for the last couple of weeks. My voice isn't very good. So I don't criticize him for being in his 80s and having a tough time with his voice. Wow. You just listen to this version of Eleanor Rigby. It's so smooth. It sounds more like Chris Martin than Paul McCartney. I kind of want to fight myself for comparing Paul McCartney to Chris Martin. That's I don't know, comparing Michelangelo to an AI painting. I don't know what, but it was just great. And I couldn't possibly love it more. And I was so excited. And I looked at the set list recently, because you can go to setlist.fm or you can go to the Paul McCartney archive and you can find all the old set lists. And can you believe it? I got to see the entire second half of Abbey Road performed live. We're talking Golden Slumbers. I didn't. We left early. Of course we left early. That's how my family rolls. My family avoids hassle. The fact that we went at all was such a sign of love. We left before the encore. So I didn't get to see Golden Slumbers. I didn't get to see the end. I didn't get to see Carry That Weight. I didn't get to see any of that. But don't worry. There's 2 more concerts coming where I could see Golden Slumbers and the entire second side of Abbey Road. Now, I do have an artifact from this show, my first piece of concert merch. This here. Allow me to, it's cool. It's this brochure. My 3-year-old has been really enjoying it. You have kind of images of Paul. There's lots of advertisements. So many advertisements. just like off the hook with the advertisements. And all the advertisements are like for TDK tapes and like Philips CD players. It was really a different time. Really marketing to people who want to buy physical media. I didn't get a t-shirt. I think I thought the t-shirts were kind of lame. So, that was my first show. And the next show I would see, that same brother would take me to go see Public Enemy and Anthrax. And then I would see Chili Peppers with Smashing Pumpkins and Pearl Jam. And I'd go on. I would see Nirvana. I saw Nirvana and Jerry Garcia Band in the same week. I actually saw Jerry Garcia Band back at the Worcester Central. I had a long life of seeing excellent concerts. And then I got married and I had kids and all that stuff. Which leads up to the second time I saw Paul McCartney in concert. The third time for my father, Syracuse, New York, 2017. Paul's age, 75. My father's age, 77. My age, 10 days after my 40th birthday. So this was a dark time in my life. This was a really dark time in my life. So I got a divorce a few years earlier, and I was with somebody, and I sort of thought she might be the one, and it didn't really work out it worked out fine. It was a fine relationship. It ended fairly well for a long-term relationship ending, but still my heart was broken. I was 40 years old. What am I going to do? I bought her a ticket, and then we broke up, So I'm like, who am I going to... I know. Because my mom had actually died the year before. I thought, well, this will be so much fun. I'll go with my dad, and it will be just like 1990. Well, what a perfect, wonderful thing to do. So we drove in my dad's Mini Cooper, which I basically made him get because I wanted him to have a four-wheel drive car that was safe because as you will see, safety was not his number one concern in life. We brought Band on the Run as a CD to listen to on the way there. Growing up, I think I listened to Band on the Run more than I listened to the Beatles in my family. Like, my family just loved Band on the Run. We hold that album up to super high esteem. As high as any Beatles album is how my family treats Band on the Run. So, that was really fun and nice. But at this point, my father's pretty old. He's pretty old, led a pretty rough life, fair amount of drinking, fair amount of the stuff that got Paul McCartney thrown in jail in Japan. If you know, you know. Not too big on the exercise, lots of eating, a fair amount of probably COPD, kind of emphysema-ish kind of thing. So it was a rough idea. I'm not sure it was a great idea, but I just thought this is too perfect. Here I am. I can celebrate all these years later. 28 years later, right? We can go and we can appreciate this wonderful music of Paul McCartney again. So we go, and it's kind of the Carrier Dome. Don't go. If you have an elderly father who has trouble with movement and is prone to sweating fits, do not go to the Carrier Dome. We were just like this, trying to move through the crowd the entire way to our seat. It was an absolute it was hell. It was complete hell. We almost left before we even sat down. We finally got there. He's sweating through his shirt. I'm sweating through my shirt. We get up there. We see him play. And, it's a beautiful moment. It's a really beautiful moment. We made it through a bunch of the show. There's a lot of nice play where he would play kind of smaller bits. He would play with a less big band who just kind of play a little bit more intimately. That was really nice. The funny thing was, this was the tour where he brought back his famous Hofner bass. There's actually an entire essay about that in here, which is pretty cool. I wonder where that is. Where's that little? Oh yeah. Anyways, there's just a whole bunch of stuff about his bass. So it is nice seeing that bass at this point. But realistically, my father was just not well. He wasn't sick. He just wasn't well. He was just too old to go see the show. So we made it through 4 or 5 seconds, which that's the song I really wanted to see because I'm a big Kanye guy. I don't have any artifacts from that show. We just left. I got back into the car where I discovered that my dad had brought with him an empty maple syrup container filled with whiskey that didn't have a cap. It just had aluminum foil and rubber bands around it as a cap. So I was a little salty. I was a little salty because if I had been pulled over for speeding or something, I would have lost my license and probably custody of the kids. But, what the hell? It's don't speak ill of the dead. And my dad has now passed. So what that meant was there was this kind of symmetry where my first concert was Paul McCartney. And then all those years later, the final concert that my dad saw was Paul McCartney. So it had this kind of like cosmic togetherness, this kind of oneness. And that's the thing that music like the Beatles can do. It can really unify generations and like keep us connected and grounded. And listen, culture is tricky, and it's tricky to transmit culture. And especially, I would say, the kind of culture I come from, which is kind of stuffy, waspy, American, upper class culture. There's not a lot of like transmittable things there. There's not like, I made you this food, so you make this food. In some ways, like the Beatles are the best example of what the boomers gave to the Xers that the Xers can now give to the Zoomers. There's something about that cultural transmission that was there. So imagine my joy when I find out in 2025 Paul McCartney is coming back to Western New York. Now, I miss my dad. I miss him every day. He lives right down the street. And I just thought, well, this is perfect. I now have a 3-year-old who my father met 2 or 3 times, and I have a 1-year-old who my father never met. And my house is filled with the Beatles. This is true. We subscribe to XM Radio just for the Beatles channel. If you're watching this, Meg Griffin, you are a hero in our household. Not that Meg Griffin, okay? That's all we listen to. The only thing we listen to as a family is the Beatles channel. That's it. My 3-year-old absolutely loves the movie Help. We've watched it all the time. Help is like her favorite song. She can like sing it. I play it on guitar. It's this whole beautiful thing. So I thought, how about this amazing thing we can do? Or my wife is a huge Beatles fan, but she comes from Serbia. She thought she would never get to see a Beatle perform live. I mean, she never thought she would make it to America. She never thought that any of these things would happen. So like the idea of getting to see Paul McCartney in concert for her is really special based on the sort of conditions that she grew up in, right? She grew up in war, in poverty and war. And now she gets to see the guy who wrote Drive My Car sing Drive My Car, right? I mean, how do you not take that? How do you not appreciate that? So it's this beautiful thing. But like, how the hell do you take a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old to a concert? Especially when you have 2 old dogs who are kind of trouble, and you don't really have any babysitters, and you have some support structures, but not a ton, and the venue is an hour and a half away, and your girls, and the concert's supposed to start at 8, and the girls normally go to bed at 9, but then there was daylight savings, so they normally go to bed at 8. So are we going to go through all this effort just to go and just turn around and leave? Are we even going to be able to go there? Where are we going to put the strollers? Can we bring the strollers? Can we bring a diaper bag? What can we possibly do? I email his tour manager just saying, I'm a YouTuber. I'm going to make a video about the intergenerational love of Paul McCartney. It would make the video much better if I could if I could like meet Paul McCartney and my kids could meet Paul McCartney and we could tell the story. My first show was in 1990 with my dad, and their first show is in 2025 with their dad, and it's still Paul McCartney, and it's all that stuff. I never got a response. It's okay. Who knows, right? So like, how in the world are we going to do this? Then my wife gets a terrible sinus infection that lasts like 2 weeks. We're going through some stuff on a personal side, which is some of the toughest stuff we've ever gone through. We're getting basically no sleep. The 1-year-old is teething. We're just not going to be able to do it. We were going to like get a hotel and see the whole thing. And I was going to go. I bought 3 tickets because the 1-year-old doesn't need a ticket, but the 3-year-old does. So I was going to go. And then if things went south, then I would take the girls to the hotel so that my wife could sit there and watch the whole thing. But then the hotel sold out. Well, I did find one room, but it was $1,000 a night. And so I'm trying to figure this all out. And as of like 2 days before the show, my wife said she's too sick to go. So I'm like, we're just going to have to eat these tickets. all this stress. You can hear the stress. And finally she feels better thanks to the antibiotics, and we decide that we can go, and we drive for an hour and a half, and it's a very nice drive. And yes, I made a playlist of the songs that he was probably going to play. Do you know why I did that? Because I knew this is a 3-hour show, and if we're lucky, we're going to get 10 minutes of the show before my girls disintegrate. Okay? So I wanted to make sure that if Paul was going to play any songs that my family doesn't know super well, if he's going to play any solo songs, because we do listen to some Paul solo stuff, but whatever's on the Beatles radio channel. We don't like put on Venus and Mars over Revolver. I'm sorry to Paul fans. That's a hard thing to do, right? So, we're listening to the playlist, going there. I'm sitting there. I'm like, as long as we are able to watch the first song, because I think the first song will be Help. And even though it's a John song, what the hell is Paul doing playing Help? It doesn't matter, because that's my 3-year-old's favorite song. She gets to see her favorite Beatles song performed by a Beatle at 3 years old in 2025. How cool is this story going to be? But the problem is, we get there, and there's a parking lot that says $40, and it looks perfect. And according to Waze, I'm 0.1 miles away. And I said that to my wife, and she said, no, we should try to go to the official parking. I said, it's only 0.1 miles away. And she said, no, keep going. And at this point, I started losing my cool. I'm like losing. The Beatles song's going on. It's all, let me roll it, shut up, Paul. Dandelion, shut up, Paul. Let me roll it, shut up, Paul. And I'm driving. I'm just bumper to bumper traffic. And I'm like, how long is it going to take for us to get in? I've heard horror stories about people being backed up, and then we drive by, and we creep up, 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 and then finally, oh, I'm sorry, you need a permit. I didn't know I was supposed to buy a permit, but don't worry, there's a general one around the side. So go creep up, bumper to bumper, 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 turn right, turn down. Hey, what's that cool Citroën sign doing in that window? Finally, we get down to the final place, and there's plenty of parking. We go up. Oh no, sir, you had to buy tickets for this ahead of time. So then we roll around the block, bumper to bumper, bumper to bumper, bumper to bumper, and park in the same parking lot that I saw the first time. And she's like, well, how far away is it? I said, it's 0.1 miles away. She said, you said 1 mile away. So I could have parked there the whole time. It was just a miscommunication. But I'm so stressed out. I'm so jacked up. So we get out. We pay $40 for the parking. Whatever. So be it. And let me tell you something. Going to a concert with a baby and a 3-year-old is really easy. Everybody was nice to us. They let us go in a special line with a special wand. They told us how to get to the special elevators where there were less people. We didn't have to wait anywhere for anything. Thank you to the Key Bank in Buffalo. It was the opposite of the experience with my father, where we were walking around and I thought he was going to have a stroke right there in Syracuse. This was like the nicest possible experience. Everyone was friendly and waving at us, and all these generations, and everybody sees it. Everybody knows that this is their first concert, how much it means to me, and they know how much it meant to my parents and to my brothers and to my family. They know because that's how they feel, because that's how this music touched them. Like, they know. The smiles on everyone's faces, the joy in everyone. So, we go up to the seats. I got the worst seats in the house. Absolute nosebleeds. Just because it's so expensive. It's so expensive to see a concert these days. Oh, my God. We got to fix this. Anyways, we go and we get ready, and we have ear protection. We have the ear muffs, and we put them on. My 3-year-old is afraid. I've been having her watch concert footage like nonstop for the past week, because she doesn't really like loud sounds or like bright lights. And so I got her ready for all of the lasers and explosions and all that. And we just put the stroller, like a person who's selling beers, like, oh, put your stroller over here. I can hide it behind here. Don't worry, I'll be watching it all night. Everyone's just so nice. We go and we sit down, and we're able to have our bag. We're able to have water. We're able to have food that we're bringing. We're just all set. And I got the 3-year-old on my lap. The 1-year-old is on my wife's lap. We're just the furthest away we could possibly be. But it was like we were in Paul McCartney's lap. It was so close, because who cares? Because we're in the same room, because he's playing. He's out there with the goddamn Hofner bass. Help. I need somebody. Just forget it. Just absolutely forget it. I've seen hundreds of shows, right? I've been to all these concerts. Nothing Nothing could have prepared me for that. And I knew he was going to play it. My whole goal, the reason I was so uptight, was I knew that we might only see one song before we leave, and I wanted to make sure it was Help. But like, my 3-year-old's dancing, my 1-year-old's dancing, my wife's there. We're just crying our eyes out. And I don't know if I'm crying because like I love my 3-year-old, or if it's because I miss my dad, or if it's because I miss my mom, because my mom really liked the Beatles too. Or I don't know if it's all of it together. I don't know if it's because like I'm thinking about the stuff that we've been going through in my family, and like this is like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like just because the music is so good and it's meant so much to me. I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm just like, for all those reasons, I just cannot take it. And let me tell you, we could have left right then. It would have been worth it. It would have been worth it. We were able to stay a little bit longer. We saw them play I'm Coming Up, oh, like a flower. I've been getting my family psyched for this song for the last 3 months. Every time we go to the farmer's market on Sunday, we listen to Coming Up like a flower, I'm coming up. And it paid off because we all enjoyed it. We all know the song, right? And then he says, hello, Buffalo. I kind of wish he said like, hello, New York, but that's fine. He's very sort of defensive about not playing Beatles songs, which I like, but he plays Got to Get You Into My Life. There's this surly guy next to me who's like holding up his beer over my 3-year-old, but it's okay. You know what? Even if he spilled it, that'd be okay, because that's what it is to go to a concert. There's a woman ahead of us who had her like 12-year-olds there, and she was like, you're the best parents ever. And I wanted to say, like, this doesn't make us good parents, just so you know. Like, what makes us good parents is how connected we are to our kids. They don't have to like Paul McCartney to be well educated. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, it was just, and they played the song Letting Go, and goddamn, Paul McCartney is committed to playing his newer stuff, his non-Beatles stuff, and I love it. Just keeps going, like an unwanted reprise. And then he plays Let Me Roll It, the song Let Me Roll It, which now, for the rest of my life, is the way I feel after you turn by Southern Tier IPA. What's the name of the, there's a beer company, right, as you go to KeyBank. And you take a left past that towards the KeyBank Center. And I was stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic. And Let Me Roll It to You was the song that was playing. So I can't disassociate that song from that memory. But it's just great. And then he plays Foxy Lady, and he tells his whole story about meeting Jimi Hendrix. And it kind of ties me back again to when I was 11 and 12 years old. And like, if he had told that story in 1990, I would have lost my mind. Because I'd be like, that's how I feel about Hendrix too. I brought little waffles that I made with the girls earlier. Homemade waffles. I use Mark Bittman's recipe. It requires egg whites. You got to do egg whites for good waffles. Separating egg whites. And there's this beautiful thing where my 3-year-old was sitting there eating, and then the song went in, and she'd like carefully put the waffle down on her lap, and then she'd clap, and then she'd pick up the waffle again and eat it. It was just great. Just beautiful. Then played Let 'Em In, Martin Luther, da-da-da. I think all the videos behind him were AI. I think they were. Slow motion, less than 10 seconds. Why, Paul? He played the song My Valentine, which he dedicated to his wife, who was in the audience, which is what he said at every single show. So either she goes to all the shows, or that's just Paul being Paul. The song I was most looking forward to is 1985. I don't know why. I'm just so into that song right now. I could be right, I could be wrong, but I got you. Whoa, whoa, I'm just so, oh, you want to see what he looks like, by the way? Yeah, you probably do, right? Yeah. So like, that's what he looked like in 2017. And there's what he looked like just last week. That's his show in Buffalo, So these are the 4 different Pauls that me or my family has seen. 64, 1990, 2017, 2025. Kind of cool. Then he played Maybe I'm Amazed. And listen, the frailty of his voice is real, but it's such a beautiful song. Maybe I'm Amazed is like the definitive, in my opinion, the definitive Paul solo song, because it was the first one out and it's dedicated to Linda, and it's just so beautiful, and it's him playing everything. And it was great getting to see it. So, we had to leave 1990 early to avoid the hassle of leaving the Centrum. So I didn't get to see Golden Slumbers. 2017, my dad was too old and frail, so we had to leave early. I didn't get to see Golden Slumbers. And now 2025, I don't get to see Golden Slumbers again. I didn't even get to see Now and Then, which I would have actually kind of liked to see. I don't necessarily love that song, but I think it's cool, and I'd love to see it. My wife loves it. But you know what? You know what you got to do when you go to a show with a kid, with a very young kid? You leave while it's good. You don't wait till it breaks down. You pick up when they're tired. When they start to get tired, that's when you go. So my kids were happy. They were happy to go home. My 3-year-old was like, "What time is it, Poppy?" Which is her sign to say that she's tired. So we just got up and we left right then. While we're walking out, I hear, "I've just seen a face, I can't forget the time or place, and you just met, and just a girl for me, and I want all the world to see we've met, la, 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 la," like in the hallway, walking away, and it was beautiful. It was perfect. It's perfect. Walking away from "I've Just Seen a Face" by Paul McCartney, sung by Paul McCartney. Just beautiful. Yeah, of course we got that. Muted myself. Got the 1990 and the 2025 things. You also see back there, we got the concert poster that the girls can have when they're older of their first show. I got a little t-shirt. They're not even big enough to wear the t-shirt yet, but they'll get to wear it later. And it was perfect. And we had a great time. The girls had a great time. I had a great time. My wife and I just said that was perfect. We could not have wanted a single thing more. Not even seeing Golden Slumbers could have possibly made that a better experience. So I hope you enjoyed this little sentimental journey. Of course, referencing the hit and miss Ringo album. Until next time, there's the camera. Have you seen Paul McCartney in concert? What's like this? What's like this? I'm realizing now. I also took my dad to see Bob Dylan. That might have been so. His last concert was either Bob Dylan or Paul McCartney. Well, it's better for the story if we say it's Paul McCartney. So there you go. There's the story. My first concert, his last concert, and my girl's first concert. All right. And in the end, the love you make is equal to. Frankly, that lyric is overrated. There's the camera.